Thank you all. Seriously, thank you. Anthony, thank you very much. Everybody taking this time out of your day. I don't know how many of you are sports fans in this crowd here. Handful here and there? Does anybody know what the Bears score is? Right? Are we all technologically savvy enough to have it sort of show up in our... So I'm going to ask you to pull out your cell phones, mostly the younger crowd here. So those of you who took time out of your Sunday to come, pull out your cell phones and look up the name Vincent Chin.
Vincent Chin.
Vincent Chin. And while you're doing that real quickly, so not so much people of our age, because we've been around the block probably a lot, many times, but for the younger ones here, how many of you have heard of Vincent Chin?
Younger.
Yeah, you're counting yourself in the younger folk? Okay. Well, you've heard, right? Wait, I mean, so...
Is Chin the C-H-A and the E-N?
C-H-I-N?
I-N, yeah.
Vincent Chin from Detroit, Michigan. So in 1982, we talk about civic participation, we talk about civic leadership. In 1982, Vincent Chin was, I think, a day or two or a night or two away from getting married to his sweetheart. So as you guys are looking him up right now, you'll see he was with his friends and got into an altercation with a handful of auto workers, a couple of auto workers specifically, a stepson and a father and a stepfather. So in 1982, I had been in the country sort of full-time for about 12 years. And I was in a public high school in Flint, Michigan at the time. So my experience is a little different. We didn't come here in 1926. We came here literally when I was 4. So my experience in Flint, Michigan. And how many of you, I'll ask, show of hands for the younger people, how many of you have heard of Flint, Michigan? Because of why? Why have you heard of Flint, Michigan? Water, right? So I'm here to say I drank the water, and it didn't stunt my growth that much. But growing up in Flint, Michigan, it was an auto town. It was a UAW, it was a General Motors, Big Three manufacturing town. And my first participation in this whole process of organizing and sticking your hand up or you're sticking your head up to say something, it was because Vincent was beaten to death by these two fellows, two auto workers who had basically said, hey, you took our jobs, and he was basically saying Vincent Chin was somehow associated with the Japanese automakers and et cetera, that we were all in one basket of sort of Asians and Japanese. He was beat to death with baseball bats and basically left for dead. If you do your quick research when you're scrolling through our wiki, you will see that there was no doubt in the world that these two guys were guilty. There was no doubt in the world that the police were there, and the testimony from the police it is very plain that they walked up and they were over him, and they had bloody baseball bats, and his skull was crushed in, and he was on the ground, and he was in essence dead already. So he survived 4 more days in a coma. And I think for a lot of us in our generation, that was sort of that watershed moment. I was friends with the executive director later for American Citizens for Justice, which was the political / not-for-profit / civil rights group that was established because of that case, because of Vincent's passing. I think on that board, and the executive director was Chinese, there was a Japanese fellow, there was a Filipino. So it was a very interesting thing, because now we talk about Asian Americans, as Anthony was saying, right? We talk about the block of Asian Americans. It didn't really exist in those days. We had 1 telephone per household. If you were really affluent, you might have 1 or 2 telephone lines in your house at the time. Nobody had any of this. And social media was, I don't know, what was social media? A poster at the bus stop. So there was none of what you guys have today. So when Teresa talks about civic engagement and not feeling like you have a voice, I feel like you guys are in a completely different age now, where social media and being able to get out the message, whether it's organizing for this event or it's organizing for some other purpose, to tell the story. The fact that I could ask you to all pull out your phones and look up the story of Vincent Chin 40 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, it couldn't happen. So I think for me, being an elected up in New Trier Township, I think so much of it is just encouraging all of you, right, whether our age or the younger folk here, is to feel like you can speak up, right? And I don't think it's as big of an issue for now, for this generation, as it was in 1982. So I think that's a good thing. A little bit of my background, and we can get to a question and answer. So I am University of Michigan undergraduate. My mom and dad both taught at the University of Michigan. I was pre-med for about a year and a half. My brother continued. My brother finished up at Harvard and is a surgeon. And I think there are, last count, 9 or, depending on how you count blood relationships, 9 or 11 doctors in my family. So certainly understand the traditional, and this is 40 years ago, so certainly understand the traditional path of a lot of the sort of the newly immigrated Chinese here. But I think many of you, whether it's Hinsdale Central, right, Hinsdale Central, Naperville North, I think your existence is so much different than ours now. So I have 2 sons at Northwestern University right now. One is actually studying music composition with a 2nd degree in applied mathematics. The other one is pre-med. And he could choose to do whatever he wants, right? I believe that your path, I'm looking at the younger folks here, I believe that your path doesn't have to be as straight as our paths were expected to be. Whether it's the internet or the small businesses or disintermediating of, right, wholesalers and sales channels and whatnot, you can do whatever the heck you want. So, so my children can choose to do whatever the heck they want. I have 2 more sons, so 4 in total. 2 more sons at New Trier High School, right? And they can choose to do whatever the heck they want. And right now, our junior thinks that he's going to be pre-med also. and our youngest is probably going to do something in business, etc. So I mean, as different as it was for us to grow up in an environment where we felt as though we maybe shouldn't speak up or participate as much, I would hope that you guys don't feel the same way. I would hope that you guys wear those t-shirts proudly. I would hope that you guys could come to these events and talk about being Chinese American. I would hope that you guys have more comfort in, right? I was the first Chinese American elected as president of one of the largest and the oldest student-run organization at the University of Michigan. It just takes that one person to say, well, no, now the next kid is no longer the first Chinese American or Asian American to be in that position. Same thing for Teresa, right, to have won and become the first Chinese American to be elected to the State House. And hopefully that's not just the first. It is the first, but it won't be the last for us. So, you know what, that's about it. I appreciate everybody coming out today in this weather and coming out. Any questions for us? Please.